Okay, I do think we have a quorum and all committee members are present.
Okay, with that, I guess we can call the meeting to order.
Okay. We can start with a roll call. Committee Member Chen.
Present.
Committee Member Larson.
Here.
Committee Member Mickey.
Sorry, present.
I did make a mistake. We are missing one committee member, Committee Member Mohammed. I don't yet see her on screen. Committee Member Peterson.
Here.
Chair Fasoon.
Here. Okay, with that, it looks like we can go on to the land acknowledgement. If I cut out, my Wi-Fi is being a little spotty, so just let me know. The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the lands originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lejeune. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home. Okay, now we can go to the approval of minutes.
Any comments or questions on last month's minutes? Chair Fasoon, would you like to call on people with their hands up?
Yeah. Committee Member Peterson?
Yeah, this is kind of something that helps my memory a bit, and just put this forward as a suggestion, although it adds a little bit more work. During the public comment, a lot of times people bring up items that are of interest, and it'd be kind of nice to track those. So in the public comment, although it says certain people make comments, it doesn't, is it possible to put like a brief description of what their comment was about? Like I think one person asked about restaurant emissions, another wanted to know if we could announce how many public members were present during the meeting, and another person brought up a ban on gas-powered leaf blowers. So I'm just wondering if it's possible to put those in, because I find my memory isn't very good about this later. And then the same would hold for future agenda items. If a public member makes a comment during that time, it'd be nice to know what item they brought up. And I think last time someone brought up the issue of needing more compost containers in public areas due to the new composting laws.
This is more of a procedural thing. The committee only has action minutes, so staff are only supposed to record actions that the committee have taken in the form of motions. We actually already add a little bit more by summarizing what each item generally discussed, but we don't write up summaries of every single thing said, including public comment. It's other commissions or the council that does that. We actually contract out. It's not something that staff does, and it would make the process of taking minutes much longer. I do suggest if committee members want to keep track of things that are said during the meeting, committee members can take notes, and then if you'd like to, at the end of the meeting, propose items that came up as public comment as future agenda items, or if you would like to email the chair in between meetings to recommend that the committee discuss an item that was brought up, I think that would be the best path forward.
Okay, I'll do that in the future.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, Committee Member Chen?
Aye.
Committee Member Larson?
Aye.
Committee Member Mickey?
Aye.
Vice Chair Mohammed? Vice Chair Mohammed?
She actually just messaged me and says that her mic's not working.
Oh no.
Trying to
Okay.
fix it. So that might be the issue why.
Okay, great. Thank you. Committee Member Peterson,
Aye.
Chair Fasoon.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay.
Okay.
We're on to public comment.
Yeah. Okay, I see one person with their hand raised.
Okay. At this point, if anyone in attendance would like to make a public comment on an item that is not on the agenda, please raise your hand and you will have 3 minutes. There seems to be an issue. Michelle, are you co-host?
No, I'm not. I'm also not able to lower the hands.
Okay, technical difficulties. We'll take a brief break.
Okay, it looks like someone has allowed Jeremiah to speak.
Oh, I can now.
You can? Okay.
Yes. Okay, Jeremiah?
Yes, good evening. So I just want to thank Michelle for the special city council meeting last week. You know, for whatever reason, I came in that meeting, perfect timing. I was just completing Elaine's Love laundry program on Thursdays as usual. And when I got to Solano to set up for Elaine's Love program, there was this VO scooter, a sit-down scooter, on the sidewalk, leaned up against the bench. And it was kind of in the way of my program, so I kind of just moved it to the side between the trees and the garbage cans, and it just rolled right over. And at the end of the program, I realized the tail light was on, and so I went to move it, and I accidentally pressed the button, and it was powered, it was on. And I was like, this is kind of strange. It's just sitting there as on. So I sat on it, and it moved. And I noticed the cable was cut. And so for whatever reason, it was just an on VO. And I looked at the time, and I was like, oh, I got some time. So I started riding it around Albany, and it was really fun. And so I said, wow, this is perfect. There's a city council meeting about this VO right now. So I wrote it down to city council. I wrote it in the council chambers. And I walked in there and I heard Julie speaking. And I was like, oh my gosh, perfect timing. It's public comment. So I brought show and tell. And it was really nice to have a VO scooter in the city council meeting. So I got up on the podium, just saying about how it was really fun to ride. This is the future of Albany. And it's wonderful. It is. I think that's the future of Albany. And it's so much fun. You know, I really liked it. And riding it up and down Solano on the side streets was great. I felt a little unsafe on San Pablo. But, you know, that'd be nice if we had more bike lanes. The Alona Greenway was really fun. And so luckily the VO manager was right there, and I got to turn it into the manager. He said I recovered a stolen scooter. So I was the City of Albany's inaugural rider on Saturday morning. So it's glad to be the inaugural rider. And thank you, Michelle, for a wonderful introduction. And thank you, Climate Action Committee. We now have VO in Albany.
Okay, if any other members of the public would like to speak to an item not on the agenda, please raise your hand. Not seeing any other hands raised, so back to you, Chair Fasoon.
I quickly just want to say that Committee Member Mohammed is having issues, and she's going to try to rejoin the meeting. So if it like cancels out, that's why. It's because our mic's not working.
Awesome. Thank you for the updates. And Vice Chair Mohammed, we wish you the best in figuring this out. Committee Member Peterson?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to suggest if you go down to your mute button, the little arrow, you can switch to phone audio and then dial in on your cell phone and get audio that way.
That's true.
Yeah, I know last time she was running into the issues and she did from the phone and it seemed to work. So she's just messaged me and said she'll try that.
Awesome. I like the teamwork.
Are we ready to go down to announcements?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So we can start with item 4-1, which is sustainability events and resources.
Okay, I just have one resource to share today. We want to remind everyone of the Albany Home Electrification Guide that we have available at www.albanyca.org/electric. This website includes resources and information on home electrification, transportation electrification, existing programs and rebates, and coming soon, either by the end of this week or early next week, summaries of the Inflation Reduction Act and how it will provide even more incentives for electrification based on the feedback we got from the committee last month. So make sure to check that out. Again, that's www.albanyca.org/electric, and look out for those new updates on the Inflation Reduction Act, and then some promotional material in our e-newsletter and social media to share that that's available to the public. Any questions on that? Okay, seeing none at this time, I have the honor of turning the mic to our new Civic Spark Fellow, Natasha Gallatin, who is with us for the 2022-2023 service year, so that she can provide a personal introduction.
Thanks, Lizzie. Hello, everyone. My name is Natasha Gallatin, and I'm a first-year Civic Spark Fellow serving the City of Albany. And for anyone who may not be familiar with Civic Spark, it is an AmeriCorps program dedicated to building capacity in local government to address existing and emerging environmental issues and social equity and climate resilience. Well, half of my next 10 months of my fellowship will be dedicated towards organic waste and recycling education efforts, and the other half will be focused on implementing the Climate Action Plan, specifically supporting the development of the Street Tree Master Plan. And a little bit more about myself outside of the fellowship. I am a Bay Area native and a recent graduate of UC Berkeley, where I studied environmental economics and policy and city planning, quite the mouthful. And I want to say I've already learned so much from everyone in City Hall, especially the team at Community Development Department. And I'm looking forward to getting to engaging with you all. So thank you for the time.
Welcome.
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 We've got a nice history of great Civic Spark fellows, so welcome.
We're excited to have Natasha on board, and you'll definitely be seeing a lot of her at this committee meeting. Before we conclude announcements, I did forget to include one thing. I want to let the committee and the public know that council and commission meetings have started meeting in person in a hybrid format, with advisory body members and staff attending in person at City Hall. Committees, including our own, will begin meeting in person with the hybrid option for attendees, but in person for committee members starting next month for our November meeting. This is therefore the last fully Zoom Climate Action Committee meeting. And I don't think anything will really change on the committee member side, but staff, you'll need to be patient with us, as there will be a little bit more tech to do. So we may have a little bit of a learning curve for the November meeting, but we're looking forward to being back in person. Any questions about any of this?
Member Larson.
Yeah, sorry. Did you say that public are hybrid, can be in person or online, or have to be online?
Public can be in person or online. Committee members must be online must be in person, except for very, very, very special circumstances.
Interesting. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, Chair Fasoon, if you'd like to open it up to public comment.
Yeah, let's open it up to public comment.
Okay. If any members of the public would like to speak to the announcements item, please raise your hand using the Zoom raise your hand feature. I do see that we have a phone number in the audience, and Committee Member Mohammed, if that's you, can you raise your hand on screen real quick? Did you call in? Okay, great. I'm going to promote that. Oh, darn, I can't.
I think we can just leave the allow to talk on.
That's a good point.
And then Committee Member Mohammed, you can just keep that muted until you want to speak, and then you can unmute and mute as needed.
Perfect. Thanks, Michelle. Smart move. Okay, at this time, back to public comment. If any members of the public would like to speak to any of the announcements, please raise your hand. Seeing none, back to you, Chair Fasoon.
Okay, awesome. So it does look like we don't have any presentations today. So we can jump right into discussion and possible action items. And so that's item 6-1. We can start with the proclamation of appreciation for Kate breeding.
Okay. I will at this time share my screen and read the proclamation. I also had to wake my dog up, so if you heard that, that was him dreaming. Sorry about that. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Great. In honor of Kate Breeding's service on the Climate Action Committee, whereas Kate Breeding was appointed to the Climate Action Committee in August 2019, and whereas Kate Breeding demonstrated a passion for sustainability and urban greening, and whereas Kate Breeding was a valuable member of the Urban Forestry Subcommittee, and whereas Kate Breeding continued to serve during the COVID-19 pandemic, adapting smoothly to online meetings, and whereas during her term of service, Kate Breeding was influential in achieving the city's sustainability goals, including influencing implementation of the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. And whereas during her term of service, the committee achieved important milestones for climate action, including opting all electricity accounts into 100% renewable electricity, approving pilot programs to advocate for advance electrification, and providing feedback on program and policies. And whereas Kate Breeding is recognized by the committee for her thoughtfulness and dedication to sustainability, and for her commitment to making Albany a more environmentally responsible city. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Albany wishes to express its sincerest gratitude and appreciation for Kate Breeding's service to the City of Albany to help foster a sustainable future, and wishes her the best in her future endeavors. At this time, if anyone would like to make, or I guess we should take public comment. Kate was not able to join us this evening, but I will be sending her this recording if anyone has anything to say after public comment. But Chair Fasoon, you may want to open it to, do you have a question, Committee Member Peterson? Okay. Chair Fasoon, if you want to open it to public comment.
Yeah, let's go ahead and open it into public comment, and then we can do comments.
Okay. If any members of the public would like to speak to Kate Breeding's proclamation of appreciation, please raise your hand. Not seeing any hands raised, so back to you, Chair Fasoon.
Okay, awesome. I see Committee Member Peterson.
Yeah, I just wanted to also acknowledge Kate's strong interest in greening the city, and appreciated her work to move the street tree master plan along. And I'm really glad to hear that our new Civic Spark member is going to be focusing on that. I look forward to that immensely.
Great.
Anyone else have anything they want to add? Any comments?
If not, at this time, we'll take a motion to approve.
I'm happy to make a motion to approve the proclamation.
Was that a second by Committee Member Larson?
Yeah, second.
Thank you. Okay, Committee Member Chen,
Aye.
Committee Member Larson,
Aye.
Committee Member Mickey,
Aye.
Vice Chair Mohammed,
To unmute, you need to click *6.
right?
Aye.
Wonderful. Committee Member Peterson,
Aye.
Chair Fasoon.
Aye.
Wonderful. Motion carries. I also just want to recognize and thank Committee Member Hamid for her perseverance this evening. Very admirable. Okay. That's it for item 6-1.
Awesome. Okay, so we can move on to item 6-2, which is the advisory body work plan status report.
Okay, so for this item, it was a request from the City Council that before 2 members of the council leave because their term is up, the council consider or reconsider the work plans from their committees. It's an opportunity to check in on the status of the current work plan, but not an opportunity for commissions and committees to add more or take off items from their work plan. So there will be no text added to or removed from the current work plan, but this is just an opportunity to talk through what the priorities have been, what's been accomplished, where the committee may want to focus its efforts for the rest of the term, and thinking about moving into the next year of work on the committee work plan. I did provide a marked up version of the work plan with all action I had recorded from action minutes from the start of the work plan to date. So I hope that was helpful. But really the goal of this evening's discussion is to go over the work plan, revisit what the committee has worked on, what went well, where the committee wants to focus in the future on items currently on there, potentially talk through what subcommittees want to do. And then ultimately, at the end of this, there should be a motion to designate one member of this committee, could be the chair, vice chair, any other member of the committee, to attend the November 7th council meeting to talk to the council about the work plan. Any questions there? Okay. Chair Fasoon, I pass it to you to lead the discussion.
Okay, let's start discussion. I'm just going to call on you by the way that I see you on my Zoom screen. You're welcome not to speak, but if you do have something to add, it's just going to be more equal and make sure that everyone really has a chance to speak. So on my screen, Committee Member Mickey, you're first.
I'm catching up.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate the work plan and the red notes just on what you all have been able to accomplish. So
Okay, awesome. Committee Member Peterson.
Yeah, I have a couple of just comments. Let me pull those up. So let's see.
Also, I'm realizing, I apologize, I may have jumped ahead. If there weren't any questions on the process, maybe we should go to public comment and then go into discussion. Sorry about that, Chair Fasoon. And sorry, Nick Peterson, to cut you off.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Okay, maybe we should go to public comment.
Yeah.
If any members of the public would like to speak on this work plan item, please raise your hand.
Okay.
Quiet audience, I don't see any hands raised. So back to you, Chair Fasoon.
Okay. Committee Member Peterson, did you get those notes up?
Yeah, so I'm assuming under the recommend to council to endorse state and federal actions, it's also we can recommend that we don't support certain actions, right?
I would assume so, yes.
Yeah, okay. And then on the, I noticed we have some things appearing multiple times, and I kind of get it, but just to explain it a bit more to City Council, that under building electrification, the EV charging pilot program, I think it's good to say it can also cover electrical improvements, say panel work, as needed to provide charging. So that's where it kind of fits in under building electrification. On 1B, it talks about we adopted stricter Cal Green building measures, including measures to mandate all electric new construction. But don't we now also have that for large remodelings also? I thought we brought that in too.
Michelle?
It hasn't been passed by council yet, but it was approved by the commission. It's for
that goes into effect.
Extensive remodels.
Yeah.
So a pretty small subset of remodels, but yes.
But I think it's an important one. So anyway, so that's not in effect yet. So we couldn't really bring it up at the meeting, huh?
I think you could bring it up since you recommended it.
Yeah, okay.
I apologize for missing that.
No, I think that's, I think it's a good thing to, I know there's some committee members that, council members that might be concerned about that. This might not be the right place to really start to feed this to the council. And I'll talk about this more when we get to zero emission transportation. But I think some of the feedback on this last potential future work plan items, potential feedback on the 10-year municipal fleet electrification roadmap is the desire to bring in police patrol vehicles, at least as a pilot project into that. I don't know if we need to really say it here or wait till that's something that works through the committee more and then goes to council rather than sort of dropping it in a council meeting as an update now.
I didn't include it because the committee hadn't taken any action on it. I think if you interpret that action, the discussion that has been had thus far falling under that action, I think it would be fine for whoever represents the committee to say that you're interpreting that as being part of this priority. That's not something that's gone to the council before, so they wouldn't know on their own.
Yeah, maybe because this is under potential future work plan items, you know, it's better just to say that we've looked at it, not get specific about it.
Yeah, I don't think they're really looking for specifics, super specific information on any of these. It's really just a check-in on how it's going with the number of items and the content. So I think you're welcome to bring up anything that fits under the intent of one of the work plan items, mentioning that it's something you've brought up.
Okay. And then the last thing I have was just on the very last bullet there, initiate a building electrification study for all city buildings. It'd be nice, well, there's a sense of city leadership there, which I'm wondering why we denoted this as not being so critical. I think a lot has happened since when we made this work plan, and the focus on electrification has really ramped up. But again, maybe this belongs with the electrification subcommittee to sort of start to put a little bit more push on the city to be a role model and move some of that agenda forward. Just a comment I had seeing that there. And that's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Committee Member Peterson. Next on my screen, Vice Chair Mohammed. I know your audio is a little funky, but if you want to.
I don't really have anything to say. I'm also looking through the plan, but currently I don't have any questions or comments.
Okay. Committee Member Chen.
Yeah, I had a couple of comments for just providing a status report to the city. I think we had 5 main areas that we focused on in our last work plan. I think the first 2 we're doing really well. So for building electrification and zero emissions transportation, like if I were to just, use traffic lights as an analogy, I would say those are in pretty good shape. Those are green. I feel pretty good about the work we've done there. Green infrastructure, adaptation, and resilience. I think the bulk of that work was developing a master tree plan. My understanding is that with staff, that process is underway, but maybe will not be completed within the current work plan cycle. So I would code that one as, say, yellow. And then I think for the last 2, they're maybe a little more questionable for me. So collaboration with other committees. I think when we were developing the work plan, we didn't really have a complete vision on what was possible there or what would be advisable with other advisory bodies. I think we've done some work with AUSD, but we ran into some procedural issues there. And I think that, I don't know, depending on how you look at it, I feel like we're not going to necessarily spend a lot more time on that area. And then the last one, I think for community education and engagement, we set pretty ambitious goals there, and it doesn't seem like we're on track to meet those. So I think those last 2 areas are maybe where we're falling the most short of our planning. And I think the first 3 areas are where we're doing pretty well. One other general comment I had was when we were developing the work plan, we actually ended up in our discussion paring back a lot of items. And at the time, we felt like the committee was sort of at capacity based on sort of previous work planning cycles. I think based on a lot of the progress we've made, we have these 5 areas. We've hit, 2 or 3 of them, I think, pretty clearly out of the park. And we still have, I think, another 8 months in the current cycle. So I would basically recommend that for the following work plan cycle that we consider adding items more in line with the committee's capacity and taking on a greater number of work items. Those are my general thoughts on the work planning process. I think for the scope of this discussion, we're mainly talking about reporting to the city council, not on actually work planning cycle, correct?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, I think that's all I have to add.
Thank you, Committee Member Chen. Committee Member Larson.
Hi, I don't have any real pointed comments on anything, but Committee Member Chen's comments were very interesting, and I agree with your analysis of sort of the progress for the different areas. I think that's sort of was a good summary. I guess I'd come to a little bit different conclusion in that, for example, we learned that the education engagement takes a lot more resource and skill set than we sort of set out with that. So I'm okay with having that learning and redirecting effort into where we have had success in 1 and 2, and that's sort of being on the zero emission transportation subcommittee. That's where I'm putting my effort is into more items for that, following on the success that we've had with some of the earlier items. So I'm not necessarily in favor of adding new stuff, but focusing energy on where we've had success. I think that's that'd be my take on it.
Yeah, I also kind of agree with that perspective, focusing on quality over quantity. Otherwise, with that, does anyone else have any last minute comments? Yeah, Committee Member Peterson.
Yeah, along with I don't know if we're getting into discussion now about how we can implement more things. Are we just talking only about the presentation that we're going to give to the city council this time?
I think it's up to the chair, depending how long other items on the agenda are going to take. The main goal of this discussion is to summarize what you want to present to the council and then nominate someone to present it. If you wanted to spend a few minutes, I'd caution you not to spend too much time talking about the work plan because you can't add anything to it. But if you wanted to spend a few minutes discussing, especially if this were to inform your presentation to the council, how you do plan to prioritize actions over the next half of the work plan cycle, I think that could be productive. Chair Fasoon, I think that's ultimately your call, though.
So are we choosing someone to go represent and then also having a discussion on what to present? Are we trying to finalize those right now?
Yes, definitely want to finalize those. But then if you also want to spend a few minutes discussing how you might want to prioritize next steps with the work plan over the coming months, you could do that as well.
Yeah, I think that'll be a productive. Just keep a little short time. Committee Member Peterson, do you have comments on that?
Well, yeah, I could, but I guess what I'm worried about is I know I'm presenting on two other items that will take up a bit of time. Maybe we can start to have this as an upcoming agenda item. I know we need to get a new work plan. What's the time frame of getting the next work plan?
This work plan lasts until June 30th, 2023. So you have a while.
We have plenty of time. So I think I would vote to just select who presents and then move on to next items.
Okay. And it sounds like the committee, I thought this was a very fruitful discussion about what the committee wants to be highlighted for council during that presentation. So whoever is nominated to present this to the city council, I think you may want to re-watch this discussion and plan to have a few bullet points to present along with it.
One section we didn't really go over is potential future work plan items. I guess, do we still feel like that section is pretty relevant?
I'm not on the committee, but I'm wondering, do you mean relevant in terms of are the actions still relevant or relevant in terms of?
I guess when we were doing planning for this work planning cycle, I think, we sort of made a list and then we drew a line where we thought, this is where we'll be able to get to. And then kind of the highest priority things after that ended up in future work plan items. These aren't things that we necessarily have to present as status, but I think it would be interesting to present to the council if we felt like those items were no longer relevant.
Yeah, Committee Member Peterson.
Well, and Larson's there too, but I think we could make some comments on, but I think a couple of them are extremely relevant, and that we actually did provide input on one of them, I think is critical, and there could be some follow-on, as I'd mentioned earlier, about doing something relative to patrol cars. So what I'm kind of saying is, since we had to make a decision, certain things sort of jumped around a bit, and we had an opportunity to look at one of those future ones a little bit earlier on and had some good suggestions on that. So I think there's an opportunity to bring that forward to the council and let them know that we are also thinking about these priorities and that some of them might be coming up a little bit quicker than we thought.
I also had a question. I know we took public comment before, but no one commented. I now see 2 members of the public with their hand raised. Can we go back to public comment after, or do we have to just move on?
I think that's up to you.
I would say, okay, so I'm going to say Committee Member Larson, I see your hands raised, but maybe after we could jump back because 2 people have had their hands raised for a while now. So yeah, Committee Member Larson.
Okay, yeah, just quickly that I would be in favor of not removing them because I don't remember exactly why we put these under future work plan items, but to me, at least I think all 4 of them fall under items 1 and 2, kind of. I mean, we could kind of, I think that they were a little bit far-reaching and controversial at the time that we were doing our work plan, so I think that's why we put them, but I wouldn't want to remove them. I think that, you know, they're good stretch goals and, could potentially fall under things that are already priorities. So I would be in favor of just keeping them.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything to add? If not, we should probably jump to public comment. Okay. Yeah, then with that, I think we can go over to public comment.
Okay. First speaker is Lucinda Young. Lucinda, you may be on mute.
I did not intend to raise my hand. I apologize.
Okay.
My hand was not supposed to be raised.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Jeremiah?
Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, so far as a work plan, a couple of questions. Number 1 is where on the city's website can the public click on certain links and review and look at the Climate Action Committee's work plan? And then the next thing I was going to mention was that at the city council meeting, 2 city council meetings ago, I guess, the one before the special meeting, was, let's see, Aaron Tiedemann's subcommittee report mentioned that in the Alameda County, I forget the acronym, EOBC or something or other, he said that Albany did not get in on the first wave of infrastructure grants. And so, you know, I was wondering if we could at least try to get on the second wave of infrastructure grants, because the work plan item referring to the police department getting electrified vehicles, that's great to get the electrified vehicles, but we need the infrastructure in place first, right? So that way then the police vehicles would have somewhere to charge their vehicles. So I don't know, it's kind of, the infrastructure has to be there, the charging stations needs to be there at the city hall or at the police station to get those electrified police vehicles, right? So, and then we don't want city council to approve something to where city council has to pay a lot of money to put charging stations in for the police station to have electric vehicles. So we kind of want to get the infrastructure grant from the Alameda County first, definitely get in on that next wave. I don't know why we weren't in the first line, but I think if we have the work plan item and yeah, maybe go ahead and approve, submit to city council. Yeah, we want the police station to have electric vehicles. Then city council could take that to their subcommittee report or to the Alameda County EOBC or and say, hey, well, we need this infrastructure grant on the second wave because we're about to implement a policy to where all of our police vehicles have to be electric. So, thank you for your time.
Okay, I don't see any other members of the public with their hand raised. So back to the discussion. Oh, I do want to take a moment to answer the one public comment about where the Climate Action Committee's work plan can be found. If you go to www.albanyca.org, go to hover over government. I will actually share my screen because that sounds funny saying. Okay, if you go to our website, hover over government, you can go to Climate Action Committee, click that. Then you can find right here, Climate Action Committee work plan. It'll take you right there. Okay. Now back to the committee for discussion. And as a reminder, the final product of this discussion should be a motion to nominate somebody or a motion to designate somebody from the committee to present this to the to the city council on November 7th at the city council meeting.
Committee Member Peterson.
Yeah, I want so a question to you, Chair Fassoon, is it seems like it would be nice to have our chair do that. Is this something you would be available to do?
Remind me what time it is.
The meeting starts at 7. Unfortunately, I think it would be hard to say exactly what time this item would come up. I think it could be any time between 7:45 and 9 p.m.
And that's the 7th, the Monday.
7th, Monday.
Yeah, I mean, if no one else wants to do it, I'd be happy to. But if anyone else would like to, I want to leave that open as well.
And I think when I participated in this in the past, I think I was chair once and did the presentation. It can be 2 members too. I mean, it's kind of nice sometimes to have a little bit of moral support up there talking to the members.
Yeah, I mean, I would totally feel a little better having someone there has a little more experience in doing that. If anyone would like to do that with me, if not, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to participate too, but I'm not sure if others are interested also. But if you are too busy, I'm happy to do it. And if no one else wants to do it, I'm happy to do it.
I mean, yeah, I would definitely like to do it with you. If you want to do that together.
Works for me.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Would anyone like to make a motion to designate Committee Member Peterson and Chair Fassoon?
I'll make a motion to designate Chair Fassoon and Committee Member Peterson to present the work plan.
Okay.
I'll second if you need a second.
Yes, thank you. Okay, Committee Member Chen?
Aye.
Committee Member Larson?
Yes.
Committee Member Mickey?
Yes.
Vice Chair Mohammed?
Aye.
Committee Member Peterson?
Aye.
Chair Fassoon?
Yes.
Great. Thank you all. I thought that was a very productive discussion. And I look forward to seeing your presentation.
I had a quick question on that. Lizzie, will you set up a time for Chair Fassoon and I to meet with you to sort of pull that together, or how will we go about that?
I think you two are welcome to meet, just the 2 of you. I will be there to answer questions as the staff liaison, but I won't be a part of the presentation. So you two could meet separately to discuss how you want to present if you'd like.
Yeah, well, that's good. I think I have Chair Fassoon's email, but if not, can you just send us both our email addresses so we're clear on that, and then we can set up a Zoom session or something we can put our heads together.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That sounds good with me for next steps. Otherwise, is that all for item 6-2?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay.
Don't forget about daylight savings. It's on the 6th, I believe.
Oh, yes. Thank you for that. I completely forgot. With that, does it look like we can go on to item 6-3? Okay, the presentation by Committee Member Peterson on CPUC proposed changes to net energy metering.
Okay, well, thank you very much. First of all, first and foremost, I want to offer my apology for my inappropriate behavior at our last meeting, which was really against protocol and was not fair to both Lizzie and Michelle, and also to Chair Fasoon. So I let my passions get over my head a bit on that, but that we all feel strongly about things, and it's not an excuse to make others feel uncomfortable or threatened. And I just want to let you know I pledge to avoid this sort of approach and temper my passions in the future. So I'm very sorry if that was unpleasant for anybody, and that goes for all the committee members too. I mean, I want to be part of a well-performing and collaborative group. So I do also appreciate the opportunity to make this rebuttal presentation to staff prepared analysis of the CPUC's proposed decision on net energy metering policies known as NEM3, which is at the very least a highly political issue with many disagreements around how to deliver electrical power equitably while rapidly addressing the need to decarbonize generation. Unfortunately, governments are not immune to manipulation and influence, and many times, are many times not, as staff might have suggested, impartial sources. So I think it's important that we look at a broad range of sources for this. The CPUC as a government agency is lobbied constantly by the investor-owned utilities to look favorably on their proposal. They spend millions of dollars on lobbyists, consultants, and legal support to ensure that they receive a much beneficial outcome for regulatory decisions. That's part of doing business. I mean, that's not illegal, and it's not untoward. It's just the reality. So with that in mind, I want to give this sort of alternative presentation. And I'm not sure, Lizzie, should I just share my screen and do this with a PDF, or do you have the presentation? I'm happy to do it either way.
I think if you have it up, that would be best.
Okay, let me make sure I can get my...
If you can't, I could pull up the PDF from the website.
Oh, yeah, actually that might be good. I'm saying I just have the backup information. Yeah, if you can pull that up. And then I'll just say next when I want it to move to the next slide.
Okay.
Thank you. Or I could pull it up off of the Google Slides.
Either way, I'm just going to pull it up from our agenda packet.
Okay, let me make sure I don't have that downloaded.
Which, oh, here it is.
Sorry, I thought I had all my documents staged out, but I didn't have that one.
Okay. Hang on, it's downloading.
Yeah, I didn't download it myself.
Okay, let me see, I have it up.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, great. So, why is this proposed NEM3 policy bad for California? So the problems inherent in the CPUC's proposed NEM3 regulations, it will greatly reduce the amount of rooftop solar installed in California. It works directly against state policies, federal legislation endeavoring to increase the amount of rooftop solar, and it ignores climate change and the need to meet sustainable energy goals on all fronts. not just on what utilities can do for us, but what everybody can do, as in crowdsourcing. Next. Who's against it? A coalition of over 600 community groups and organizations focused on sustainability reject the proposed decision on net energy metering from the CPUC. This is a battle for the future of California's electrical power system and the realization of fossil-free energy goals. And then there's a list, and one thing I would mention is that all our immediately adjacent municipalities have come out. Their cities have, Berkeley, El Cerrito, I think the mayor of Oakland has, and several other communities. And you can look at the list, which was included in the packet, of government entities that actually are not supportive of the proposed NEM 3. Next. Who is in support of the proposed NEM 3 rules? The investor-owned utilities, PG&E, SoCal Edison, and San Diego Gas and Electric. This is a current 120-year-old system of regulated monopolies, and it has a huge inertia to not change and to keep providing power in the same manner they always have, which are large generation installations with long-distance power lines. It's very expensive, inefficient, but it worked very well in the past as California was growing, and it was a way for us to get all our power rolled out. Regulators appear to feel that the IOUs are too large to fail, and the system needs to be maintained as is. So the arguments for, and I'll get into this a little later, the cost shift, all are based on that the existing system must be maintained as it is, can't change. So next. New challenges due to climate change. There's a need to rapidly electrify former fossil fuel energy use. There's a need for more rapid and widespread shift to clean power generation and distribution, dangers of long-distance transmission lines, and the risk of wildfire due to diminished forest health. The initial NEM program was instituted in 1996 to specifically increase solar power generation and to have that generation be distributed around the state to improve resilience and reduce the transmission inefficiencies of the existing system. Next. Old problems baked into the current out-of-date system. Financial incentives to the IOUs still provide huge amounts of profit linked to building large generation facilities and long-distance power lines. They get guaranteed profits. They and their analysis of distributed rooftop solar power generation does not place a realistic value on how rooftop solar makes the grid more resilient and safer. They just ignore that, and they just look at the money that's within the current existing system. This analysis was passed directly onto the CPUC and forms the basis of the CPUC's proposed NEM 3 program. Some cases, it was just cut and paste right out of what the investor-owned utilities provided into what the CPUC has presented. IOUs have engaged and supported analysis from several sources to create data arguments that support their point of view and downplay the benefits of distributed solar generation. Installers of large wind farms and solar farms that benefit from the centralized method of power generation distribution have also been lobbying the CPUC to keep the system primary to the generation of electrical power in California. Next. What's so great about net energy metering? NEM is about a simple, fair policy. Renewable energy generators, including rooftop solar owners under a certain size, 1 megawatt max, are allowed to offset their own power usage with energy they generate themselves with their own system at retail rate when used. Renewable energy generators are paid a competitive wholesale rate for the excess sustainable energy they put into the grid. That's how NEM 2 works. NEM 1 might be a little different. They might get retail for all their generation. Next. NEM has been state policy and growing since 1996. Why throttle it back now? The primary driver of promoting the widespread adoption of rooftop solar was to engage crowdsourcing to roll out large amounts of clean distributed energy generation. Also an intentional approach to accomplish two other goals: build a clean energy economy with thousands of good paying jobs for everyday Californians who were not benefiting from the tech boom, bring down the cost of solar systems so that they would be affordable to more and more Californians. All of this came true over the past 20 years of NEM policies. Increased distributed solar is contrary to the status quo and into the profits of the IOUs were able to realize under the old centralized power system. Although they're still making great profits, PG alone has gotten like an 8% increase year over year over the past 4 years, made tens of billions of dollars of profits, but they do it on building long distance power lines and centralized power sources. Next. Then came the wildfires of the past 6 years. This led to the bankruptcy of PG&E and the need to raise rates to increase the amount of maintenance on long distance power lines, including undergrounding massive tree maintenance campaigns. The IOUs went to CPUC to transfer these costs to the consumers. High rates are hugely unpopular as the cost of electricity jumps substantially in California. Focusing the anger of ratepayers on a different source than the IOUs was necessary. Enter the concept of the cost shift by the IOUs to attack rooftop solar success. Next. The cost shift is seen by the investor-owned utilities. Even though the IOUs are seeing record profits, PG&E has seen profits grow at an average 8% per year for the last 4 years, raking in tens of billions of profit from California ratepayers. IOUs were able to tell a story of how rich white solar system owners were forcing poor brown ratepayers to foot the bill for their share of supporting the energy grid. Since the IOUs weren't going to sacrifice any of their profits to address this, they created a cynical and divisive narrative to justify reneging on their NEM 1 and NEM 2 agreements and forcing rooftop solar customers to pay the utilities more. Next. Here's how it works. NEM 2 allows any customer to install a solar system up to 1 megawatt on a property they own and offset their own power use at retail rates. That is, the power that goes directly from their system to their use is credited to them at the time of day use rate. Since it never goes into the grid, one might ask why the utility should ever monitor this. The reason is because the IOUs consider this a loss of revenue essentially stolen from them by the NEM customer. With NEM 1, non-bypassable charges, NBCs, these cover energy efficiency programs and low-income customer offsets, were not assessed. So there is a reasonable argument that NEM 1 customers were evading these charges and they would need to be made up somewhere else, the non-NEM 1 customers. NEM 2 made a correction to NBCs, and NEM 2 customers must pay these charges on the net power use, but not including the power they generate from the solar system. Maybe this could be added, but that's one small change. That's not what's being proposed. So if the NEM 2 only partially addressed this problem. Next, what does NEM 3 do? NEM 3 considers rooftop solar customers, and this is NEM 3 as the CPUC has recommended, which is essentially what the investor-owned utilities proposed. It includes nothing from any of the other 20 to 30 other proposals that were presented to the CPUC. NEM 3 considers rooftop solar customers differently for generation than for rate paying. As generators, the IOUs have convinced the CPUC that these small generators are really a big conglomerate entity and should be compared on par with large solar farm operators. NEM 3 to average out the power directly used by NEM customers with the wholesale rate that the IOUs pay for their excess power. So what they want to do is that power that the user uses directly for themselves, they want to average what they get credited for that, even though it never goes into the grid, with what also gets paid at the wholesale rate. This means NEM customers are receiving a much higher value for solar generation than the wholesale business generators. But that kind of makes sense because they're just individual property owners. NEM 3 readjusts the value of what is paid to NEM customers by decreasing it by roughly 80%. NEM 3 charges a monthly connection fee to solar system users on top of the already paid connection fee that supposedly covers grid maintenance fees. And it charges that forever for as long as you're connected. It doesn't matter if that adds up to more than your system costs or whatever. They're just going to continue to charge your connection fee. Next. Why is this bad? NEM 3 is punishment to Californians, especially early adopters, who paid a premium for solar systems when they were still expensive, for using their own resources to install clean power generation systems to reduce their carbon footprint as requested and incentivized by the state. It throws current NEM users off their contracts 5 years earlier than agreed, and then forces them to pay more than everyone else for power once on NEM 3. The result will be that many NEM 1 customers will disconnect and their solar systems, as it will be more expensive to keep them connected, and they will essentially be rebuying them from the utility companies through connection fees. Next. This is cynical and disingenuous. If the CPUC and the IOUs are so concerned about a cost shift, why don't they address the cost shift from all ratepayers to the IOUs' profits, which continue to soar even after wildfires have ravaged our state? Why are IOUs' profits off the table, but rooftop solar owners' use of their own generated power is up for grabs? Why is the state building code mandating residential solar systems if the owners are going to be ripped off for them by the utilities? Why has the federal government initiated policies to massively expand installation of rooftop solar and encourage Americans to install it, but California wants to throttle it back when the time to act on climate change is rapidly diminishing? It's all wrong, in my opinion. Next. Where does Albany stand? It all comes down to money and the incredible tenacity of an existing well-funded system to leverage political and economic clout to their own benefit. The CPU's assessment of NEM is not impartial and is usually influenced by the existing monopolistic players. Albany should recognize this, as have all municipalities around us, Oakland, El Segundo, Berkeley. For more details, and that's the list that was attached. Next.
I think that's it.
Oh, okay. So and there certainly was a lot of information, and thank you, staff members, for including that in the packet. If people are interested, there's links, there's all sorts of things. And it's a very fraught issue, and it's being very hotly contested and fought, and it's gone in and out of the legislature. There's been sneak arounds attempted with the extension of the Diablo Canyon plant, where they tried to eke in reevaluation of solar customers there. So it's been a huge uphill political battle. And what is at stake is, at least in Albany citizens' abilities to own and operate solar systems and benefit from it. If this proposed NEM3 goes through, customers coming in will probably find there will be no financial advantage for them to do that. So that's my sort of rebuttal. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I'll take any questions people have.
Committee Member Larson.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I really haven't looked up where the issue is now. Where do you know where it stands right now? As far as, last time we met, it was like going to a vote at any day, I thought, but is that
right? Well, that's again part of the opacity of the whole system, and that the CPUC doesn't even do what they say they're going to do. Back last December 10th, they issued their preliminary decision, which essentially was verbatim the investor-owned utilities preferred NEM3 plan. They got a whirlwind of political opposition to it. Public comments went on for hours. There were protests. There were thousands of letters written to the CPUC and to the governor. And I think they were a bit shocked at the response. During all of that, Newsom made a statement. He didn't come out in support or opposition. He just made a statement that this needs to be looked at more. That's all he said, something to that effect. I don't know if that was it verbatim, but just basically he said this needs to be looked into a bit more. With that, the CPUC went back and sort of hid out for a while. It wasn't brought up. And then all of a sudden brought it back for public comment with the idea was the public comment would only be limited to a proposed glide path to NEM3. So they didn't change NEM3 at all. They just came in with some transitional suggestions of how NEM3 would be adopted over the next year, which would make it less startling from the get-go. And the comments were supposed to be limited to that. Again, thousands of comments and reactions telling them they were going down the wrong path, et cetera, et cetera. They were scheduled to make a final announcement on the NEM3 policy in September. They blew past the date with absolutely saying nothing about it at all. At this point, we don't know when they're going to come out with a more definitive statement. Maybe someone else here knows that. But what I've heard is they're probably waiting until after the election because it's such a politically fraught, especially for Newsom. Not that he's at any risk of losing election as governor, but it just looks bad if he's not supporting it, and it's really hot in the press. So they've just hunkered down, and we're not hearing anything, although people are still attending and making public comment at the CPUC meetings. Does anyone else know when? I don't know any other timeline on other than what I've just mentioned.
No, all I know is they extended their statutory deadline to make the decision to sometime next year.
Next August.
Thank you. Yeah. And we did get in contact with a staff person at the CMC who wasn't able to give us any more detail.
At the CPUC or at the?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty opaque.
I had one question, which I think I've asked a couple times on this topic. So my power generation rates in Albany are set by EBCE. I understand that the CPUC decision affects PG&E. Does it also affect EBCE?
Well, EBCE, and Lizzie can probably comment on this too, but I'll give my two best first. EBCE closely matches their rates to PG&E, but of course EBCE is a nonprofit entity and rolls all profits back into supporting sustainability and community activity, and they give millions to all sorts of worthwhile causes and supporting building new generation and whatever. They don't just turn it over to shareholders and high-paid executives. So, but the reason they're able to make those profits is, yes, they do, rather than just coming in and reducing everybody's rates and doing no development of sustainability, they use proceeds for different initiatives that they're promoting. I don't know, Lizzie, does that sound right?
You're correct that EBC closely ties their rates to PG&E. I don't know, and Daniel, thank you for asking, exactly how a CPUC decision would change EBCE's NEM programs. So I will send an email to EBCE right now and ask, and hopefully have something to share back as soon as possible.
Yeah, I also put in, I sent a message to Dan Lieberman to find out if EBCE has any position on NEM, the proposed NEM 3.
I do have an answer to that.
Oh, okay.
I'll read verbatim what I have. NEM 3.0 has been pretty quiet this year. In early February, the CPUC pulled a previously issued proposed decision back for revisions and canceled a scheduled oral argument. In May, the CPUC asked for additional party input, which it received in June and July. Since then, the only action has been a waiver of statutory deadline for a decision. As for positions EBCE has taken, EBCE has supported an export compensation glide path along the lines of Sierra Club's proposal that steps down from the electrification rate to the avoided cost calculator in 1 gigawatt tranches over 10 gigawatts. Additionally, EBCE has supported having all customers pay non-bypassable charges while opposing a solar-specific fixed charge. That makes almost no sense to me, so apologies if it doesn't to you either. I can't clarify beyond that.
That actually made a huge amount of sense, and kind of shows how there's in-between viewpoints on what should be done, which of course the CPUC has just completely ignored and held to pretty firmly to what was proposed by the investor-owned utilities. That's what's so frustrating about this. So everyone agrees that there needs to be some slight adjustment. They've been talking about it for years and years. But the rather brutal one that's coming through with what they call the solar tax, which is the connection fee, is just, you look at it and it just isn't going to bode well. I mean, they did the exact same thing in Arizona, tanked the rooftop solar industry for a whole year while people had to rally. Their version, Arizona's version of the CPUC, just mandated, a reduction in the net energy metering, and people had to go to the legislature and rally them to get their net energy metering back. about 2 years after that, and then the solar industry is doing much better. But it really has a huge impact on that industry. And there are other ways that we can mitigate, cost impacts to low income folks, which, we'd like to bring, it's so calcified, the current system that's there, that we're still incentivizing a electric generation system that is detrimental to the state is frustrating. But it's hard to change these big, huge monolithic entities, especially when, it's like with the fossil fuel industry, you can't turn it on a dime. There's billions and billions of dollars involved, and they're going to fight for them. I don't know if we answered your question really, Daniel.
I think I'll follow up, Daniel, with if I get a response from EBCE with a more specific explanation of how this might impact their rates.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to talk more about it during the discussion section, but I think that was a good answer.
Great. And yes, just a reminder, we're in questions. So are there any other questions before we go to public comment before discussion?
Okay, looks like we should jump into public comment.
Okay. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak to this item? I see one hand. Lucinda?
Yes. My comment first is a question. I'm not sure if you're able to answer or not, but I'm wondering, Lizzie, was EBC's position, is that posted on their website someplace that we can, because I agree it was difficult to understand. I'm wondering if that was some private communication you had with them, or is that posted on their website, their position on NEM 3? And I realize that we're kind of in a waiting stage right now to see what CPUC, they currently don't have a proposal, and we're waiting for that to come out. In Berkeley, El Cerrito, and Oakland, I understand, along with a lot of other cities, have taken a position, which I'm assuming was on the CPUC's December proposal. And I'm wondering if it makes sense for our city to take a similar position. Although there's really not, if I'm understanding correctly, there is no pending, we're waiting to see what CPUC comes out with. And maybe we need to just wait until we see what their latest proposal is. I would like to see our city take a position that their previous adjustment to NEM 3 is not consistent with our climate action plan. But I guess I'm just questioning whether we should wait to do that, or make a stand like our other cities, our other sister cities have. Thank you.
I can answer those brief questions. The position I got was in an email correspondence, staff to staff. I'm not aware if it's posted on their email or on their website, though I do believe if it came from the regulatory team, they probably published something public, but I'm not sure. I can clarify that as well. And also to clarify, I did look at the cities of El Cerrito, Hayward, and Berkeley, and they all did council resolutions in October or December of 2021. So I believe that would have been on the last iteration of NEM. It was not on this newer proposal, if I'm understanding the timeline correctly. But Committee Member Peterson, you may know better than I do there.
Yeah, there, as far as I know, there was just this request for input on glide path issues. but there was no new proposal. Basically, all that said is we're going to this NEM3. I mean, they didn't shift anything, they didn't eliminate the connection fee. They just talked about ramping in certain other methodologies, usually to promote rooftop solar enablement for disadvantaged customers. So it was again, still making the case pretty firmly within their argument that somehow rooftop, that basically rooftop solar users are foisting more cost onto disadvantaged non-solar ratepayers. And they're holding pretty firm to that statement and using their analysis of fees and what they're paying and what they feel the benefit of the rooftop solar is, which is pretty negligible.
Real quick, sorry, this is a long answer, so I want to make sure we don't cut off any other public comments.
Sure. So that's as best as I can put it forward. But there wasn't a new iteration of NEM3. It was just, some suggested glide paths. Okay.
Next public comment is Jeremiah. Jeremiah?
Thanks. I'll be really brief. So is there any way that if we suggest this to City Council to make a stand, or we could suggest that if any solar rooftop power is generated in Albany, then whatever solar power is produced in Albany, it's passed out at a lower rate to Albany users? Maybe it doesn't have to go to the same household, but if, let's say, hypothetically, your neighbor has solar and you don't have solar, but you want to use, energy that your neighbor put on the grid, is it possible we could suggest somewhere that, solar use that's generated in Albany is, used at a lower rate since it's generated locally and distributed locally? So maybe that could be in there somehow as, part of some sort of agreement. Thank you for your time.
Okay, are there any other members of the public who would like to speak to this item? Seeing none, back to you, Chair Fasoon, for discussion.
Okay, we're gonna do the same format. I'm just gonna go by who's on my screen. Can you remember Mickey, if you have stuff to say?
Yeah, no, Nick, I really appreciate you pulling all of this information together. I mean, I think last meeting it was, I think your passion came through. I really appreciate it. I don't know that I appreciate everything you brought to the table. I don't know that I actually know enough about this topic. So I'll leave it to other commissioners to comment.
Committee Member Mohammed.
I just also wanted to say that, I don't really know much about this topic, and along with me, if other people don't know much about this topic, we're probably gonna maybe discuss about this in the future, and I would just suggest to research about it ourselves and learn more about this. Yeah.
Committee Member Chen.
So if I understand correctly, there are basically 2 to 3 different actions we can take. And it sounds like what our sort of peer cities have done has been to issue a resolution that was used as input in the decision-making process. One avenue that I don't think that we've explored at all is to actually use our ability as members of the Joint Powers Authority that is East Bay Community Energy to have a different rate schedule than what is pursued by the CPUC decision. I don't see why we have to wait to see what PG&E does to set rates that are, unequivocally in favor of rooftop solar if that is a policy choice that we believe that we should approach. Perhaps more concerningly, it sounds like from Lizzie's communication with EBC staff, it sounds like EBC does support the glide path, just without non-bypassable charges, which, to be fair, would not affect EBC at all. They would just look like a lower bill without actually affecting the bottom line of EBC. So I think we should, as the Climate Action Committee in Albany, maybe consider our options around influencing EBC rather than focusing on sort of legislation at the state level for the most immediate impact. So I would, welcome any suggestions that we could pursue along those lines.
It's also possible we could inquire and see if EBCE staff would be willing to come present on this if they're able to. I can inquire. I'm not sure if that's possible, but it's something we could look into if the committee would be interested, of course.
Committee Member Peterson?
Yeah, just before other people comment, just to do a little response on that. So this is sort of a state policy thing. And if we tried to reduce it just to East Bay Community, if we just said, well, East Bay Community Energy is going to work out some deal whereby our customer zone will be able to keep those, it just succeeds in the divide and conquer of everybody. That just means everybody else in the state, including, the Central Valley and other places where solar is essential. So I would argue against trying to, find some way to just make us, in some sense, this is like how we say, well, we're doing also sustainable electrical energy right now because we're 100% sustainable. Well, we're paying a little more and we're supporting that. But frankly, the electrons don't care where they come from. And there's still a huge portion of electrons in the state of California. When you look at the California, the Western inner operator system composition of electrical power being distributed, it's still a large segment is from fossil fuel and especially gas. So we may, just because we can pay a little more and we're clean, it hasn't moved the needle substantially forward other than our little zone of Albany or wherever we are in EBC. So these ideas of sort of making our little zone look good work against trying to get all of California behind, a policy that moves us all forward and gets as much clean generation and storage out there as possible.
Committee member, Chair Fasoon, would you mind if I respond?
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that sentiment. There's no reason why we can't both write a strongly worded letter to the CPUC as well as use the board members that we have on EBC to directly influence the decision. I feel like using the board members we have on EBC is a much more likely path towards having something achieved, whereas writing a strongly worded letter to the CPUC, I think, has almost a negligible impact from what we've seen from the proceedings in the past. So I agree that the impact of the state action is far larger than the impact of the EBC action, but we have a far larger ability to influence the local action compared to the state action. So I think we should probably consider doing both. But if we were to focus time on one initiative, I think focusing on EBC might be more fruitful.
Committee Member Larson, I know you haven't had a chance to speak, but I don't know if Committee Member Peterson, if you want to say anything quickly in response to that, or
no? I mean, we could go on for hours back and forth, and I think actually it would be more interesting to field Member Chen's question with EBCE And I would be really interested myself in knowing if that's something that's even possible. But I have a feeling it's, part of the reason people don't know much about this issue is it's extremely complicated, complex. There are all sorts of legalities and ownership issues. And even though EBCE, they buy power and sell it to us, but they're all beholden to having this grid in place, which the utility owns. And you can't get away from that. So it's not like they're a separate power company. They're just a power broker that we use instead of PG&E. And I think they somewhat, I don't even know what the CPUC's regulatory powers are over the community choice aggregators. I mean, there's likely some rules in place for that.
Committee Member Larson, did you have anything to say on this matter?
Yeah, I'll put my 2 cents in. First off, thanks, Nick, for putting so much work into that. That was really informative and well done. And Lizzie and Michelle, thank you for engaging on the topic and giving the space for the discussion. So it's been really interesting and hugely important. I'm a rooftop solar owner myself, and I invested in it 7, 8, 9 years ago, something like that. And at the time it was a stretch. And of course, I'm in it because I believe in the climate change and the climate impact benefits of rooftop solar. But what I was really proud of where California got to was we got to a place where rooftop solar was doable for the average person. It was more or less at par with the rates at PG&E, and you could kind of get a 5 to 10 year payback if you did the ROI, if you bought it straight out. And then the leasing companies came in and it was all on par. And I was able to tell my friends that you can get into solar and it makes sense financially, because a lot of people are, they'd like to do the right thing, but as long as it doesn't cost them any money at all, like zero. Like, a lot of my friends I play tennis with, they're like, well, it's going to cost me 1 cent per kilowatt more than, like, really? That's your concern? But the way I understand this, the way Nick rolled it out, and dropping the rate to wholesale for contributing electricity to the grid, just that puts the payback out there so far. I wouldn't be able to, with a straight face, tell my friends that it's a good investment anymore. And that's just hugely impactful, sets us way back. And I'm just feeling like this is, last meeting I was almost in the dark place where I was like, oh my God, can't even, it's not even worth doing anything. But it feels like we really need to make our statement like everybody else did in the communities around us. Daniel, I don't see a reason not to engage EPC. I think that's a reasonable approach, but I wouldn't want to not do the supporting a statement from the city of Albany against the CPUC proposal on NEM3. It just is so. It's so scary how bad it would set things back. And when I have that gut feeling of myself not being able to tell my friends that solar is a good thing anymore, that just is a really bad place to feel like we're going.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you. Oh, go ahead. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just want to say, like, I definitely want to kind of keep this moving along. This is a topic that can go back and forth for a really long time. So does anyone else have kind of any last minute things that they want to mention on this topic? And if not, I would recommend we keep going with the agenda.
Well, I am curious. It sounds like there was some support to pass a motion to issue a statement opposing NEM3. Is that something that we'd like to discuss?
Yeah, my hand is up because I would, I would like to do that. That's where I thought we were going to go next. So I would like to propose that we craft some statement, and I don't know if we have Berkeley or Oakland statements, but Lucinda said something like, that NEM 3 is not consistent with the Albany Climate Action Plan. That seems like some reasonable language to put in there at some point. But yes, I'd like to discuss that.
I think it seems to me at least that there's at least another month before a decision is made. I think the committee is welcome to do whatever you'd like. You could either give staff direction to take something to council based on whatever you put into a motion tonight, or you could give some feedback. We could craft a resolution that is similar to what we've seen from other cities, but again, based on any direct feedback we hear tonight, and it could come back to the committee. I think it's just a question of how urgent the committee sees this in terms of, do you want to wait a month so that you can see a resolution, or do you want to send it ASAP? Just putting out two options for paths forward to consider.
Committee Member Peterson.
Yes, thanks, Lizzie. That's a good suggestion. So, of course, I'm firmly in the camp. I think we should move quickly. If we wait till this new decision comes out, even if it is tempered down, which I really don't think it is, I mean, it's going to be moving more quickly, and I'll just, by the time we come out with something after that, it could be too late. So I think the basis of, in my opinion, would be that, and something Eric touched on, that many people in Albany are interested in contributing themselves to reducing their carbon footprint, and installing solar is a way to do that. If it's, if the NEM 3 makes it less possible, or it doesn't support our residents very well. So, there could be that, but I very much encourage staff to look at what other cities have stated and how they put it. And I could certainly cull through the information I have and my, the references I've given. I don't think we need to necessarily, I mean, it really is a philosophical question. Do Californians deserve the right to access the sun and benefit to some degree from that? Or will it just be wealthy people and the utilities that access the sun and then sell that power to us or benefit themselves? The other thing I was going to say is there are now companies coming out that are saying they're the new power company that will take you completely off grid with solar plus batteries plus a generator. And this is really scary, because if those guys with the solar going down, if those guys start to take hold, it's going to completely disrupt the whole grid situation in a very bad way. And we won't be, people will fall even more by the wayside who can't afford to get the totally off grid power systems. So I think this is really a bad direction for California to go. They should be supporting rooftop solar. And I think we could make a good argument for that.
Committee Member Larson.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it'd be a better use of the committee's time for us to take on Lizzie's suggestion of Lizzie and anybody from the committee that wants to offline contribute content for a statement, and that we can pass as a proposal to City Council next meeting. I think that'd be my preference, rather than using committee time tonight to try to craft a message that might get a little tricky. So.
I will say, though, I just want to clarify, if you're going to make a motion to say something and then we craft a resolution, we get into Brown Act issues if more than 3 people send us messages about what they want to see inside the resolution, because then technically the committee is making a resolution behind closed doors. So I think anything that you want included in it should be stated verbally tonight.
I don't see how that. We're just contributing to you to put into something that we're going to work on next meeting.
Oh, so you do want to see this next meeting? I think I'm maybe hearing 2 different.
My thought is to take input on this offline so that we can have some content to discuss at the next meeting, and then refine and make a final proposal for a resolution to City Council next meeting.
Okay, yeah, I think I misunderstood.
Okay.
I'll just throw in one other thing. You might want to consider making a subcommittee at that point, for folks to meet offline. We still can't have more than 3 people sending me information that they want included unless it's a subcommittee and they discuss. I know the Brown Act is frustrating, but then it would be policy making, not in a public meeting. So I think what I originally said, I think I misunderstood what you said, but I think what I said still is best. If we have too many people sending me things and I'm using that input to craft a resolution, that won't work. The committee could either say everything they want included tonight, and then I will include it, or the committee could form a subcommittee that could come up with a bunch of elements and do a deep dive, come with a proposal next month, and then we could use that. I think those would be the 2 best options in order for us to not violate the Brown Act. Any questions there? Sorry, I know the Brown Act is frustrating, but we have to protect our...
But a subcommittee can only be minority of the...
Under 3, yes.
So either way, we're...
Or less.
Either way, we're having less than... I mean, if everybody wanted to contribute something, then we're not... There's no way to do that.
Unless the subcommittee brings something back. Committee Member Mickey, I heard you were about...
Sorry, I was just going to say, Eric, what I was hearing was subcommittee will come together with a proposal, and then the proposal will be brought in front of all of us. And at that point, those who weren't part of the subcommittee would have an opportunity to either add or ask for modifications.
Committee Member Peterson, your hand's raised.
Yeah, thanks. So Lizzie, wouldn't it be a violation of the Brown Act? I mean, before we have been able to send you our thoughts on something, you would collect it and then it would be presented at the next meeting. And because there was over a quorum of us providing information to you wasn't a problem because you aren't the elected official and we're not communicating amongst one another. It would be bad if we sent it to you, you sent it back to us, then we send it back to you, and then we, if we were doing that kind of thing. But basically, I think the idea Eric was saying was that if you could collect the ideas, do your own research and pull that together, and then we'll go over it all at the next meeting, which just allows all of us to give our thoughts to you only, not to one another, just to you, in order to help you prepare something to bring to the next meeting.
I think I would need to check with the city clerk and legal counsel. I can't think of an example of when we've done that in the past. I could look into if we could do it in the future, but I would have to consult the city clerk and legal counsel. Because that's, if you think, when we've discussed before creating a Google Doc for all committee members to input information.
No, Google Doc you can access again and again and again. This is just, we would just send to you. We would be blind to what everybody else had sent. It's just with you. And you would not communicate back to us. You would just be collecting this and then putting it together to put before us and the public to craft the suggested motion.
Committee Member Mickey?
I think the only way that could work is if Lizzie literally came back and said, here are the 5 things, Member Peterson said, here are the 5 things Member Larson said, and literally just gave us a feedback on what everyone provided. But I don't think she can be put in a position where she actually tries to merge all of those, because now you have crossed the line into policymaking, because she is somehow weighing the things that are being sent to her.
I think that's true. I think I can totally check in with legal counsel and the city clerk. My gut is telling me that John is exactly correct. And I think it would be better regardless if either a subcommittee was formed or if feedback was just shared in a public forum this evening.
Why don't we, sorry, can I jump in? let's just form a subcommittee. Let's just move on. I mean, I don't think there's, if we get more than, can we do 3 people on a subcommittee, or is it
3 or fewer?
3 or fewer? Okay. So, I mean, I'd volunteer for a subcommittee.
Okay.
Sorry, was the other alternative that we basically delegate this to staff to sort of write a statement to the CPUC in line with what our peer cities have done?
And any feedback you provided this evening. And then we could bring it back next month. I think those are the 2 options.
Okay. So we're either forming a subcommittee or talking about, well, I guess we're talking about this next month either way. There's nothing we can get out before, let's say, like November 7th or so.
I think that's correct.
Okay.
Unless you wanted staff to just do it.
So aside from Committee Member Larson, that was you that said you would volunteer for the subcommittee. Aside from Committee Member Larson, is anyone else here would be interested in that? Committee Member Peterson?
I certainly would, but I think Member Chen brought up an interesting point. So Lizzie, you could use any of the information that I presented tonight, right? Because it's all public, it's been issued and whatever.
I could present anything the committee had a consensus on wanting included in this. So if you wanted to choose option B, which is not form a subcommittee, but instead have staff between now and next meeting draft a resolution, anything the committee agreed upon, which I would encourage you to, as a committee, as next steps, if you went this direction, come up with those key points, that's what we would include. It would have to be anything the committee had a consensus on.
So that would take a fair amount of time. So the subcommittee, I guess we need to move on because we're running through time and still have other things. So if we do a subcommittee, I'm more than happy to do that and then bring that back. And then the staff would take on, we would discuss it then and come up with those items, and it gives a little bit more time. Could the subcommittee contact you, and or would it be up to the subcommittee to pull in the EBCE information, or could staff simultaneously do some of that?
I can get in contact with EBC and share any communication that I get from them with the subcommittee.
Okay, well, I would volunteer for the subcommittee if that's how the whole committee wants to go.
Would anyone else here, like, we can have one more person?
2 more.
2 more, okay. 2 more people. Is anyone else here, aside from Committee Member Peterson and Committee Member Larson, interested in the subcommittee?
Oh, so 1 more if it's Peterson and Larson.
Yeah, 1 more, okay.
I'm interested, but I'd be happy to give anyone else an opportunity to join the subcommittee. I've worked with Larson and Peterson in the past, so yeah, I always want more people to have opportunities.
I would love to join, but I can tell you I will not have time before our next meeting.
What do you got going on?
Nothing. I have nothing going on. Just,
just running for city council.
All right. We should not discuss that. If we do want to create a subcommittee, there should be a motion to create that subcommittee.
I'll make a motion to commit to create a subcommittee on a NEM3 statement that includes myself and Member Larson. And that will report back at the next meeting.
And Member Chen?
Does Member Chen want to be on it?
Yeah.
Okay, and Member Chen. Yeah.
Okay. And Member Mickey, you're not interested? Okay.
A second.
Before I record the votes, what would you like the name of your committee to be? I didn't quite.
Why don't we just call it the NEM3 statement or something like that? What would the city council be putting forward? Position, NEM3 position recommendation, subcommittee.
Okay. Roll call vote. Committee Member Chen.
Aye.
Committee Member Larson.
Aye.
Committee Member Mickey.
Aye.
Vice Chair Mohammed.
Aye. Aye.
Committee Member Peterson.
Aye.
Chair Fasoon.
Aye.
Okay. And we will put this down on a future agenda item for next month.
And sorry, just for clarification, Lizzie, will it be possible to talk to someone from EBC, or is that something for the subcommittee to take on?
I emailed asking if they could either provide, it sounds like we don't want to invite them to a CAC meeting. We could ask if they could come to a subcommittee meeting, or if they could provide a memo. So I should hear something back hopefully soon.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Committee Member Peterson.
Yeah, Lizzie, are you reaching? I've reached out to Dan Lieberman. Were you reaching out? You have other contacts there, right?
Yeah, I have another contact, but I think
Okay.
You're welcome to continue to coordinate with Dan Lieberman.
Yeah, I'll do that. I think it's good we both do that.
Okay.
Right.
Committee Member Larson.
Do we already have the statements from the other cities? Nick, do you already have that? Or Lizzie, do we already have that? And if, can you send it to the subcommittee? Like Berkeley statement?
I think they're linked on the list of positions that had been taken on Committee Member Peterson's memo.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I think that concludes 6-3.
Okay, looks like we can go on. I do want to acknowledge that it's 8:51, and we probably will not get through this in the next 10 minutes. So I want to make a motion to extend the meeting to, I don't know, 9:20. Does that sound sufficient? 9:30, 9:20.
I would second 9:30.
Okay.
Is there a second for a
Yeah.
motion? Okay. Okay, Committee Member Chen.
Aye.
Committee Member Larson.
Aye.
Committee Member Mickey.
Aye.
Vice Chair Mohammed. You want to just wave your hand? Okay. Vice Chair Mohammed says aye. Committee Member Peterson.
Aye.
Chair Fasoon.
Aye.
Awesome.
Okay, and with that, looks like we can go on to item 6-4, which is the home electrification mandate proposal subcommittee presentation.
And that's me again. And this time I'm going to have to bring up my, got my slides. Just take me a second. Slides. So it's pretty similar to how it was before. But we had some discussion before, point of listing, status report 9. Okay, here it is. I was going to give this last month, but I didn't. Okay, so I'll share my screen. Boy, it's amazing how everything slows down when you're in Zoom. Okay, everyone can see my screen, right?
I do not. Oh, now I see slides. Yes.
Yeah, there's this time lag. I'm not sure why that is. So this is proposed point of listing energy efficiency electrification. I call it the 3E upgrades program. And I know this does involve a mandate, but I'm going to try to give a convincing argument that this is more like a incentive program. So just to recap efforts today, this happened back when Mira Venkatesh and I were on this committee. We reached out to real estate members. We got very few responses. We get a response from a real estate member called Candace Hyde Wang, which basically her input was you got to have a mandate, and it's going to be unpopular, and it's going to be not going to be well received by the real estate professionals. But once it's in place, they'll do it. And one, it's just getting over that hurdle of having something that will be put in place. So features, it should be as simple and easy as possible, although we are talking about, complicated building performance issues, but rather than diving into detailed analyses, they're just simple check the box kind of things that can be done that are currently being done now by just standard building inspection professionals that real estate agents go to all the time. So then it should be scalable. So it starts at kind of an introductory level that isn't too onerous, and people are not going to be too upset at having to pay. I think of Berkeley's original RICO program. I think they were mandated something like $7,500, but even that got beat down to where now they just have to do a disclosure, and then someone has to, sign off that they did the assessment and disclose. So it should be flexible, giving the parties involved that we don't want the city to be in the position of saying, you guys split it 50-50 or you guys split it 25-7. We don't want to be in that position. We want the professionals to negotiate and come up with their own way of how to even what upgrades are done and who pays for them. We just aren't going to tell them that at all. It's not up to the city to do that. It's performance-based, so it's based on list price and building performance. So the building, when I mean performance-based, it's not like you do a performance calculation. It's just how well has this building been configured to date to address energy efficiency and electrification. And the main thing that I like to say is it incentivizes the key players, because the time frame to do this could start right now. I mean, if you were planning on selling your home in 4 years, you would know right now what is required when you sell your home, and you could start making improvements, or if you were going to do upgrades, you would pick the ones that would diminish the impact of this mandate when you went to sell your home. So it incentivizes people to do the right thing early on. So let's see. Yeah, good. The rating system is standard inspection criteria performed by qualified persons. Electrification is just an assessment of the building appliances. So it's really simple. In energy efficiency, we'll look at insulation, primarily attic roof, wall, which can be a little problematic, but the idea here is more to capture those homes that had an addition that might be more well insulated than the original house was. So you could say, well, a certain portion of the home met certain criteria, and you wouldn't have to just fail at all. And then, of course, floor is relatively easy to understand and see. Weather stripping, total easy. Window type, total easy. And then whether there's a solar system and the type and whether it has storage, that's completely straightforward to do too. No problems there. With electrification, it's the water heating, stove range, clothes dryer, EV charging ability, space conditioning, and then main electrical panel condition and capacity. So all these things are, don't take huge amounts of time or anything to assess. It's just check the box. So this is kind of, and again, this is just a proposal now. Here would be here's a suggested scoring where it goes from no points, half point, 1 point, 2 point, and 3 points. And you can see for each type, each one of these criteria, depending on, if you had a really, no attic insulation, single glazed windows, no wall insulation, no floor insulation, no weather stripping, no solar system, no battery storage, and your gas on everything, no EV charging and everything, you're not going to be performing well and you're probably going to be dinged, but you get these kind of points moving along, and you can see certain things are incentivized. You get a lot of points for doing over insulation. And again, these need to be, I kind of pulled these out of the top of my head, and, we should go back and look at code, and, some of these should exceed code, some of them should be code. Battery storage, this incentivizes going to a really good resilient load. This, I think 13 kilowatt hours is currently the Tesla Powerwall, which is kind of a standard unit that people have been using. They started out more around the 7 kilowatt, now they're up to the 13. And if you're over that, you get a big bonus. And the same thing holds for these appliances. It's really straightforward. You can see that level 2 charging gets you a 2 point. That's relatively straightforward to do. If you're under a 100 amp panel, that's terrible. But if you have a 100 amp, it's kind of okay. More incentives to get up to 150 amp, 200 amp panels. Anyway, you get the idea. These are all incentives for people to make points or to get points if they've already done this kind of work. They're rewarded for putting in a solar system, for having a solar system that does a large amount of their load. So here's some example. Over here with the green, it was an upgrade example. So before, this house had, and we'd have to go back and look, but it had minimal attic insulation. The windows were single glaze. There was an addition that had some insulated walls, had an insulated floor, but most of the rest of the house wasn't. It was weather stripped, didn't have a solar system, didn't have battery storage. So it gets a 3 point on the energy upgrade, on the efficiency. And then with the water heater, everything was gas. It did have a 110 volt plug where you could charge your EV. And it had, I guess, a 100 amp panel. So it had 2, so the whole score came up to 2.5. So if you're in, and again, these percentages could change. So this is actually, and we'll talk about this in sort of the categories that we're trying to push. This is actually a pretty poor performing home, although maybe not typical for a not recently remodeled Albany home, which currently is going for over like $1.25 million, maybe even $1.5 million. So let's say the list price on this was $1.5 million. So because it's in here, they need to have 1.25% of list price. That amount of money needs to be expended before, well, that gets into another refinement of it. Either that gets expended, between listing and point of sale in a manner that the potential buyer, the buyer and the seller all agree on, or let's say the seller, there would be a condition for if the seller agrees just to take it as is and be responsible for all these, for this amount of upgrade, they would have, say, a 2-year period to file a building permit to make these, like a lot of people who buy homes immediately remodel them. And they do all this stuff anyway. So it's just getting their mind, if they're going to remodel their home, it's telling them, hey, here are the things you should do. So it's incentive that they'll spend at least this amount on energy efficiency and electrification when they do a remodeling of a very poor performing home. So here's just looking at, I went through picking out, and we'd have to go back and look at the other chart to see, these start to bring in solar systems, battery storage. A worst case, you'd have to, if you're going to sell this worst case home as is, someone's going to have to spend, 1.9%. Again, we could adjust this up and down. I was trying to make it something reasonable, but if you're buying a home that's this poor a performer, and you're paying 1.5 million for it, you're probably going to want to tell the seller that they've got to put this effort in. Someone may take it and say, well, I'm going to tear it down and I don't care. And I'm certainly going to, when I do my $1 million home, there's certainly going to be at least $28,000 worth of these improvements in there. So that's kind of a worst case. And then, of course, a perfect case, or even a best case, nothing's required at all. So if you score 11 or greater, then and this is an average, basically it takes these two numbers, adds them together and divides by 2. So if you're 9 or better, if you're 11 or better, and again, these numbers, we can decide what they are and put them forward. I just looked at, looking at, this is a pretty bad home. This is sort of a fair home. It has a grid-tied solar system that only provides half of what the use is. So that would be a home maybe from the early 2000s that went into an M1 program. And, they have some stuff they can do and they need to spend $11,000. Now, they may see this and say, gee, the way the house is now, we're going to have to spend $11,000 before it closes. Let's go out. We were going to spend a certain amount of money anyway. Let's see if we can spend maybe less of that and still up our score to get to, to bring the score from 6 to 11. They may be able to beat this price. We don't care, just so long as when they list it, they do the assessment and they come up with the score and then manage these amounts within the sale of the building. So that's kind of how the system works. Here's going back, looking at all the points are. I won't go, you can go back and forth between these and kind of see how they got these points. So what we're recommending is I'd like to get the staff input on this. I know they probably have a lot of questions. We went through questions before and I tried to answer those so that, the idea is this is just up to the seller and buyer to agree who covers the cost and how they cover the cost. And there would be special situations, allow a 2-year grace period, file permit for major remodeling with itemization of how the 3E upgrades will be accomplished. If the sales price is 25% or more over the list price, I've seen houses that go 50% over list, then required 3E upgrades amount will be based on 90% of the sales price. So that was just to try to capture these situations where obviously someone has a lot of money, they're going to do the right thing, and we just want to make sure they do electrification upgrades. Yeah, we don't, some people might say, oh, why get into that level if they agree to pay more? It's all part of how they settle out who pays what. Why burden them any further with that kind of amount? I'd agree maybe that's not worth doing. And then, bring this back to CAC for further input and finalization. And then I would like to, the goal would be to get this to the city council to at least roll it out in its initial stage in 2023. That's all. I'll entertain questions if Chair Fassoon wants to call on people. And let me release this. Let's see how I release this. Stop share.
Yeah, does anyone have questions? Committee Member Larson.
Yes. So there was that thing about the 2 years for a building permit or a implementation. I guess in general, I was wondering about the enforcement of this. How is this enforced? Either at point of sale or after the 2 years time frame.
That's a good question. I'm not sure how they enforce the sewer lateral requirement. I think the inspector just confirms whether it's done or not, and then I don't know how they hold. Maybe it's part of what's there has to be something recorded with the city that needs to go through the escrow office that proves that it's that's done. I'm not an expert on real estate transactions and laws, but one thought I had was that that portion would be handled by the escrow company, and someone would have to cover it. Either the seller would cover it and take the buyer off the hook, and agree that it would stay in escrow until the improvements were done, or someone would have to come up, if they can get estimates on certain things that would happen, they'd pick from that list to get, we're not saying you have to get to a certain score. We're just saying you have to spend this amount of money and improve the energy efficiency and make it more electrified. So that's a really good question, and that could be a big hurdle for this. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts about how this has been achieved with the sewer lateral process. The idea is there's just this lump amount. Someone needs to verify it's been done. And it seems like, providing, contracts, or that you sign contracts to get work done, would be one way to do it. The seller could just do all the work ahead of time, show all the stuff, and then, once they get a buyer, it's all taken care of already. And again, the incentivization of it is that rather than go through all that headache, they'll look at how the house performs and they'll go, well, we're going to bring it up to 11. And maybe we want to change that. Maybe they only have to bring it up to 10. And they'll figure out a way to do it. Believe me, people are very innovative. They'll probably figure out a way to do it in less money than if they were mandated to do it.
Right. I like the idea. I was staying away from discussion. Just that was my one question. So I'll stop it there.
Oh, I was going to say, let's move over to public comment and then we can get into discussion.
Okay. I see two members of the public with their hand raised. Jeremiah?
Yeah, thank you. So I was wondering, is this just for single family residents? I was just wondering anything regarding ADUs, where ADUs fit in, possibly, apartment buildings with more than one water heater or many windows. And I was wondering also, on the chart you have for ratings, I don't remember seeing solar panels. I know we just had this huge discussion about solar panels. Was solar panels on that chart? I took a screenshot and I'm trying to find my screenshot, but I can't find it on my phone. But I don't remember seeing solar panels. And what if a house doesn't have solar panels and they upgrade to solar panels? Does that give them more points? And then on a bunch of them, it went from 0 all the way to 2. When you have like electric car charging or a stove, I think I remember, I can't find my screenshot. I wish I could, but you had stove and then you gave 2 points for a stove. Does that mean you have 2 electric stoves in your house? What's the difference between 1 point on a stove and 2 points on a stove? I mean, for me, I would say, okay, you get 0 points if it's a gas stove. But if you got an electric stove, what's the difference between 1 point and 2 points? I just saw a big jump from 0 to 2 on a lot of those, and I didn't really see a 1 category. So yeah, just to sum it up, my questions are, is this just single family residents? What about multifamily, a house with the ADU in the back, or an apartment complex or a duplex? And then also, right, solar panels. Is there a category for if you upgrade with solar panels? And then the third question, I think, was, for example, the stove. How do you get 2 points for one stove? What's the difference between 1 point and 2 points? Thank you.
Okay, next speaker is Lucinda Young. Lucinda?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Nick, for this presentation. I haven't had a chance to digest all the details, and there are a lot of details here, but I do want to express my support for the general parameters of this proposal. If I'm remembering correctly, approximately 30% of our city's emissions are from buildings, and I know we just recently have a new code provision that requires all electric and new buildings and also substantial remodels. But that's a pretty small portion, I believe, of all our Albany buildings. And we need some way to reach the existing buildings that aren't new, that aren't undergoing a substantial remodel. And it just makes sense to me that focusing on the point of sale is the way to go. And it's just kind of ironing out all the multitude of details. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other members of the public with their hand raised. So back to you, Chair Fasoon.
Awesome. Okay, now we can go into discussion. Committee Member Mickey, do you have anything?
Yeah, Nick, would you mind putting up that table again? Can you share your screen? I'm trying to make sure I understand. This was a lot to digest. Yeah, so slide 6 is the one in particular that I'm interested in.
Yeah, okay. So this one or the?
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so on the columns where it says by building condition, so you're saying if the evaluation comes in, if I'm looking at the good column, so you're saying they scored a 1, they scored a 2. Then what they would be required to do is asked to spend about $7,500 in upgrades, which in theory would move them up to like a best potentially, or like their score would go up if they did that.
Right. And, you know,
Sure, Nick. That's perfect. That's all I need to know. Yes, because so what I'm just looking at 7,500. I'm like, so they replaced their dryer. I'm like, what I don't understand is what does 7,500 actually get you? Like what are they going to actually do with $7,500?
So well, yeah, you don't have to do much. So they had for attic insulation, they had a 1. Which meant they had 6 to 9. They could go up to 10 inches. They could add more attic insulation. They could, I mean, all these are ones that they could, do more battery storage. Get up to 3 or do more, get a few more panels on their solar system, which would probably is more complicated. I'm finding out is more complicated than.
And Nick, do we have an example community that we have where something similar has been done? I mean, I know Berkeley has their evaluation, but it's not based on these.
Not in basically Berkeley tried to do the system where you would go out and get a building energy assessment, and you get certain. Frankly, I can't remember. They started with one system, moved into another. And what they basically found out was that their program did incentivize something like 6 to 7% of the affected homes to do some sort of upgrade, which in my mind seemed pretty poor. And it didn't have anything related to electrification. So what I wanted was something that was just check the box simple. And, all this can be played around with. I mean, maybe you don't have this many categories. maybe you only have 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right. Yeah, no, I understood that earlier from your conversation, from your presentation, Nick. I think a lot of my thoughts and questions I wrote down, so I asked examples. To me, my questions go very quickly to how is this administered? How is there an update schedule? So like it's more the very long-winded, often text document that goes with something like this, where how are we monitoring it? Is we planning on reviewing it every 4 years? But as an idea, I love this idea. I think where I get nervous is I don't know how many categories we should have, and whether or not all of the categories that you've listed here, even as rows, are the right categories. They feel right to me. So you have solar systems, like that was Jeremiah's question.
Yeah.
You have battery storage. Like it seems like they're the right categories, and I'm really intrigued this, and I'd love to dig into this more.
Yeah, and I mean, you could make it more. I mean, I think you could make it more complicated. I mean.
I would argue, I love the fact that you're trying to not make it complicated.
Right. And you know, again, you want to give folks credit for stuff they have done, you know, doing the right thing with solar or moving towards electrification. The reason I bring this incentive aspect up a lot is because it seems like every for sale home I go to, they have obviously spent thousands of dollars gussing it up, and they always put in a big gas range. Always. And they always put in instant gas heaters. And it's like those things are now locked in place for the next 20 years or so, because they're brand new and they were just put in. And it's like, why are they doing that? So here, it's just a no-brainer. And to, you know, Jeremiah had this question about why do stoves come up? Actually, you get a half point for having an electric resistant stove versus a gas stove. But then you get 2 points for having induction stove, cooktop and then electric range. So again, the incentive is, hey, do the right thing. Electric resistance, people hate it anyway. So you could have a home that had electric resistance range, rip it out and put in an induction, and you get 1.5 points. You know, so I mean, you know, that's not a huge effort. But anyway, again, it was, you know, the frustration I always had with doing these very kind of high level energy efficiency scores and doing modeling and all this stuff is we already know what we want people to do. We want a good performing envelope, and, you know, we want generation, you know, clean generation of energy or reduction and using a lot of electricity that's not generated cleanly. And then we want electrification. So this just drives to that directly without trying to do a lot of science. You know, it's just check the list. Do you have it? Do you not? Now, it's not telling you the specific solar system to get, how big the solar system is, or anything other than percentage of load. And, you know, even this could be maybe simple. All this might be a little bit more simplified. But again, it's just either you have it or you don't. And if you get credit for it. If you don't, you can add it in. So again, where I see this program being very successful is you have someone who's in these range. You know, there are very few homes like this, and most homes that sell like this, people know they're almost a tear down, or they're going to completely remodel them. And when they do it, they'll do the right thing. So I'm not so worried about this. I'm not so worried about the good and the best. So it's really this category in here. You've got some sort of moderately performing homes, and, you know, they'll look at this and go, geez, I don't want to have to deal with this. So how can I boost this up to this before I list it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you've answered my question, Stick. I think the big thing for me is I'd love to have a work session with you on this. I'd like to play with the numbers, but I think those are, I'm good on my questions.
Okay,
I-
great, Chris.
Mickey, there is a subcommittee that currently only consists of Committee Member Peterson. If you wanted to join,
I would love to join that subcommittee.
Okay.
Although I will not meet with the subcommittee until mid-November.
Well, this is something that likely is going to take a bit longer.
All right.
I would rather get it right
Yeah.
and bring it out a little later than get it wrong, because this is the kind of stuff I really feel where Albany can try something out and get up on people's radar, and then people will go, wow, how can, and again, I know as more of this information kind of gets out, and we tried to reach out to at least real estate agents in Albany. And I tell you, with the exception of this one that says, look, you just have to make a mandate and then they'll do it. Everybody else was like, no, you're just, the concern was you'll raise the cost of housing in Albany. It's already really, really expensive. And point of sale is the one time you have the opportunity where people make 30-year commitments to pay for a really, the biggest expenditure in their life. And there's an opportunity to work in, or at least, and people are leaving, realizing substantial gains on their investment. And yet we make no conditions that would improve the performance of the building. You can sell an absolute dog for 1.5 million if you can get a hot enough bidding environment, and I've seen homes in Albany that went, 800,000 over asking, 800,000 on 1.6 million, I bet you that home has anyway, there's an opportunity and we should be taking advantage of it.
quick, sorry to interrupt, but it is 9:26 and the meeting was only extended to 9:30. So we should do a motion to extend, and then we should do a motion to add Committee Member Mickey to the subcommittee. But let's start with that motion to extend first. I would recommend that we do at least 10 minutes because we do have members of the public who like to make comments on future agenda items.
I'll make a motion to extend to 9:45, would it be?
Yep, I'll second that.
Okay. Committee Member Chen,
Aye.
Committee Member Larson,
Aye.
Committee Member Mickey,
Aye.
Vice Chair Mohammed,
Aye.
Committee Member Peterson,
Aye.
Chair Fasoon.
Aye.
Okay, and then is there a
I'll
motion?
I'll make a motion to add Member Mickey to the, I guess it's, what are we calling it now? I mean, it already has an established name. I think it was the.
It is currently the Home Electrification Mandate Proposal Subcommittee. You're also welcome to change the name if you'd like at this time.
That's fine. We can just leave it the way it is.
Okay. Do we have a second to add Committee Member Mickey?
I'll second.
Committee Member Chen,
Aye.
Committee Member Larson,
Yes.
Committee Member Mickey,
Yes.
Vice Chair Mohammed,
Aye.
Committee Member Peterson,
Aye.
Chair Fasoon.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Committee Member Larson.
I just wanted to quickly say I really like the idea and the analysis. Just wondering, so it's going to subcommittee, so we're not doing anything with this tonight, right? Okay.
Okay, should we continue with our discussion?
Sorry, I should have added while I had the moment. Just that as I said, well, somebody else said during the analysis, like how the money makes sense from the different categories. I think that was a good comment. And then, just maybe, not in super detail or, finished plan, but how it's, how you would expect to be enforced.
It sounds to me like there are enough questions that maybe Committee Member Peterson and Committee Member Mickey, if you wanted to write up a memo to attach to the next agenda, that might be super helpful. Mm-hmm. Something for committee members to refer to. Committee Member Peterson?
Can committee members, I'm thinking of, I've tried to type up the questions that have come up here. And, there was a good one that was brought up by Jeremiah, which is, is it just single family? I only see this working for single family, not apartment buildings. And even condos would be extremely complicated. The envelope and efficiencies and building systems are more difficult. So I really saw this as single family residences, which is kind of limiting, but I think in Albany, it's probably the majority of our housing, if you don't count UC and the big condos. So handling large condominium developments is a whole nother animal. But I guess a question I had was, could committee members send questions, collect questions and get them to the subcommittee?
I think it's a similar answer to the last one. If there are questions, they should be posed in the open forum.
Yeah, that we wouldn't respond back through you. We would just at least have them to include responses to them when we had our meeting.
I think we really have to refrain from doing any kind of back channel communication. So no, we're being more conservative to not violate the Brown Act. But I think we got a solid number of questions today. If any other committee members have questions, they can voice them now. If not, there will be another opportunity next month to pose questions. I'm not hearing any other questions. Okay, should we move on? We only have 13 minutes.
Does anyone else have anything on this matter?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Should we move on to 6.5 subcommittee updates?
Yeah. We can start with the Student Outreach and Engagement Subcommittee, which is Vice Chair Mohammed and I. I can kind of give a brief summary. We started a slideshow presentation, kind of like, so context, for those who don't know, we kind of started the new subcommittee, Student Outreach and Engagement, where we would kind of focus on the idea of engaging the district students in climate issues. And so our kind of plan was to create educational materials that teachers in the district would be able to use for their students. And so we kind of started putting together notes and outlines and key topics and areas we want the students to be literate in, and started formatting that slideshow. And our next steps are to kind of finish like a draft and then send that out to teachers for feedback, or just other like see what their thoughts are on it and where they would stand on this. Happy to answer any questions or suggestions, but that's kind of where we're at. Committee Member Peterson.
Yeah, so I participate in the Environmental Action Plan Committee with the district, and I know I'm not sure how collected it is, but I guess my question is, there are, like the EdSet program at the high school, there are some programs that focus on environmentalism and sustainability. Is it possible? Have you guys considered reaching out to teaching staff to maybe try to collect information they've already produced?
Yeah, I'm personally in the EdSet program at the high school, and I have had this discussion with the teachers, primarily the environmental teacher that teaches that program and also teaches the environmental science class at the high school, and he does think it is a good idea. And I definitely think like going forward, you do bring a good point, collaborating, especially with those teachers who are focusing on environmental topics at the high school. But I think it's also important to keep in mind that we shouldn't just be focusing on students who are, you know, in this special cohort and kind of letting that be for everyone, not just people accepted to a certain program. But I have talked to him about the idea.
Also just wanted to say that like we also want to focus on the younger population because I feel like high school does have a lot of opportunities to talk about climate change and climate literacy, and that is usually the target population that is like mostly educated on this. So we wanted to target some younger kids as well for this.
Yeah, and obviously it would look different from like high school compared to, let's say, elementary school. But still kind of like our idea is that even at elementary, they would start to be literate in these ideas, obviously not have like a concrete scientific understanding, but then they would be able to kind of, that would continue into middle and high school and solidify that knowledge. Committee Member Mickey.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this idea that you all are pursuing. I had a chance to attend AUSD's Environmental Action Master Plan. And one of the major things that they wanted to do was do this student engagement in education. And I think your subcommittee coordinating with them would be really incredible and powerful.
That's a really great suggestion, yeah.
Okay, anything else on this update?
That's it from our end. If anyone else doesn't have comments or questions, we can. I also, want to be aware of the time.
I do see we have public comment. I think we should do public comment after all subcommittee updates. So maybe we'll next move to the Zero Emission Transportation Subcommittee and then public comment.
Yep.
And future agenda items. So just be wary of the time.
So I think that's Eric and I. One thing I just wanted to, we've been putting our heads together around this for a while, and one thing Eric was kind of pursuing was, trying to expand alternative transportation methods, especially like third-party electrified scooters and bikes and everything. And then lo and behold, we find out that Transportation Commission is already doing this. And as Jeremiah had pointed out, you can now get VO, is it Velo or
VO
scooters in Albany, and they're not blocked. It used to be you'd try to come and they would die as you hit the Berkeley city limits, but now it's there. So we decided we need to focus on a couple others.
Can I just add to that? What we found out is that it's actually the bike companies just have to submit a business plan or get a business permit for Albany. There's no like formal block of those types of vehicles in Albany. So it was actually really good news. And the Transportation Commission just like, yep, we'll take proposals, and VO is the first one. So it's a pretty clear path, and so we don't really feel like there's too much more to do there. So yeah. Yay, success, win. Yay.
We'll see how it works. And
yeah.
Michelle was instrumental in the VO ordinance. So Michelle, do you have something you want to add?
Yeah, I'll just make a quick clarification that in our council meeting last week, the council passed an ordinance that did create more requirements for micromobility companies, but also made them allowed. And right now, VO's operating under a temporary contract, which will become a permit. So there's now a more formal system in place for micromobility systems.
So that was in the last city council notes?
Yeah, that was just last week.
Okay, I'll have to take a look at that. Yeah,
Yeah, it'll happen very quickly.
okay, thanks. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, so again, I get a little worried. We've had this subcommittee going for a while, and it's kind of broad, and it's zero emission transportation. I don't know if we want to, we could certainly, we have a couple other ideas. One is I would like to pursue, again, along this look at the electrification of the city fleet. I think we need to sort of call on the city to do a little bit more visible lean in to electrification. And one thing that I think would go really far would be to have at least one electrified police vehicle as sort of a demo project or a pilot project, and would be willing to, kind of pursue that. I've already done some research and read up on what other small jurisdictions have done to achieve this, and it's certainly doable. So, this isn't something that's going to happen very rapidly, but when it was suggested that the police vehicles weren't included in the first 10 years at all, I think that's not the thinking we should do. I think the police vehicles are the most visible vehicles in Albany, other than the little guy that toodles around and gives you your tickets.
Hey, Nick.
Or the
Nick, can I just suggest let's just do the update of what our next thing we're going to be looking into. I think that's.
So I'll be looking into that, and then Erica is.
Yeah, and I'll be looking into the next thing I wanted to look into was the shuttle bus between the BART stations. So I'll be looking into that, and then following the same process we had before of bringing it to the committee and then escalating up through if everybody thinks it's a good idea. So
Sounds good. We do have one member of the public with their hand raised, which is 3 minutes, and it's 9:42. So we are going to need another motion to extend.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to extend another 10 minutes.
So to 9:50 or 9:55?
Let's go to 9:50.
Okay. Okay, Committee Member Chen?
Aye.
Committee Member Larson?
Aye.
Committee Member Mickey?
Aye.
Vice Chair Mohammed?
Aye.
Committee Member Peterson?
Aye.
Chair Fasoon?
Aye.
Okay, we'll go to public comment. Jeremiah?
Thank you. I'll start toward the end here where you left off. The shuttle bus idea is great. I don't want to see another diesel, big, huge shuttle bus. Kind of defeats the purpose. But the solution there is to get an electric shuttle bus that rides on the Ohlone Greenway, and the pickup could be right there on Solano, Marin, and there could be electric shuttle buses. It's basically a golf cart. The same golf cart. Hey, Mr. Bond, what brand is it that Sid drives around? Is that one of the gems? But I think Albany's already in works with that guy who sells the gems, because he always comes to Solano Stroll. So you could buy some more of those gems. They make them to where they, I believe, hold 8 to 12 passengers. And that could scoot along the Ohlone Greenway, right down to El Cerrito Plaza. Straight shot. I think North Berkeley BART might be a little too far, but easiest solution there, that we could have a free shuttle that rides the Ohlone Greenway to El Cerrito Plaza. I think that would be great. And one of the other questions I had was, for the student outreach subcommittee, what was the name you said, student board member? Was it EdSet? You said it quickly, but I really want to know what the name of that group or that club is at the high school that you're in. I think you said something like EdSet. And there was something in the middle there I wanted to make a public comment on. but I don't remember right now, so it's okay. That's it. Thank you.
Okay.
I can go ahead and answer that question real quick. So EdSet is a program at the high school. It's a 2-year specialty program. It stands for Environmental Design, Society, English, and Technology. It's a cohort of students. You start your junior year. It's a program you do have to apply for and get accepted to. But once you are in that program, we have integrated curriculum that integrates current events with a focus on environment. With some required classes like AP Environmental Science being a required class to be a part of that curriculum. So that's just a little bit about that program that's offered at the high school.
Thank you. Do we have any other members of the public that would like to speak on this item?
Oh shoot, I remember my other one. Sorry.
Sorry, Jeremiah. That's it for your public comment. We'll be back again next week. Okay. Seeing no other members of the public with their hand up, back to you, Chair Fasoon. I think we're moving on to future agenda items.
Yeah, okay, let's move on to future agenda items. Does anyone have requests? Okay, Committee Member Mickey, I see you.
Yeah, I as I mentioned earlier, I got to attend the Environmental Action Master Plan for AUSD, and I think they're at a point where they are looking for more community input. And I guess I saw in the work plan that, I don't know if it was Nick or Eric that was has presented that in the past, but I think they're in a good place where it would be, I think it would be wonderful if we could have a short presentation from AUSD.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, I got the hiccups.
Does anyone else have any future agenda items they'd like to request? Committee Member Peterson.
Yeah, thank you. So we're still going to carry the subcommittee items forward to the next one, right?
Yes, I usually keep subcommittee updates as a standing item, and then I will also be carrying over the NEM discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Should we go to public comment? Okay. Jeremiah?
Thanks. Yeah, sorry about that, Lizzie. It's all good. Don't trip. Hey, so my future agenda item is that if on the next agenda we could discuss about the police having the electrified vehicles, and specifically not the entire fleet, but specifically the parking meter person, the little vehicle that toodles around. I think that would be the easiest vehicle to convert to electric because it's so small. It could just be another one of those gyms, just like Sid drives around, that toodles around Albany. So that would be my future agenda, is to maybe bring that to City Council as a pilot program. It's the easiest one to do, I see as a solution, is to get the little parking vehicles that are gas powered, for those to be electrified, because they're so tiny. So yeah, that'd be great. That's the easy solution. I see that passing. It's not the whole fleet of the Albany Police Force, but it's just a start. It's just a good way to get your foot in the door there. So that's my future agenda item. Thank you.
Okay, any other members of the public? If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. Seeing none, back to you, Chair Fasoon.
Okay, does anyone else have anything they'd like to add? If not, we can. Looks like we can adjourn for the night.
I'll just do one quick announcement, a reminder that you will be getting information about attending next month's meeting in person. So look out for that. But looking forward to seeing you all again at City Hall. I'll send you the address in case you forgot. Okay, back to you, Chair Fasoon, to adjourn the meeting.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so our next meeting is in person, November 16th.
All right. See you then.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. See ya.